Look at that beautiful stack. Wow. Okay, so I have some books next to me. Let me pick them up. I have some books. And these are most of the books that These are most of the books that I read in October. I also have some pictures since I have read some ebooks and I have read some books from the library, so I do not have those books with you right now, but I'll be showing pictures of them. And then we have a full reading wrap up for October this year. Yay! Okay, wow, it's falling over all the time. Okay, so I'm excited. Hope you are too. Let's get straight into it and let's make a cool reading wrap up, you know. Literally, reading this book feels like a lifetime ago. When I read this book, it feels like a lifetime ago. And I do not know why, since I read it at the start of October. But somehow in my brain, it feels like I read it like months ago and not a month ago. So it is A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee. And I enjoyed this actually. I gave 3 stars and this was my introduction to the Dark Academia world. And I enjoyed my introduction because this was a great start since it's a YA. But it's also not a YA somehow, in my opinion. And it was just a really cool book, and I really enjoyed it overall. I was in a reading slump when I read this, so I do not really have a fair rating or review of it, like, with me right now, since I read it in a reading slump. So when I'm in a reading slump, I do not like a single book, and there are some books that I will always like more than other books, but that is always the same thing. And this one was one of those that I gave 3 stars, and that is pretty high for someone in a reading slump, I think. So I enjoyed it. It's about a boarding school and an all-girls boarding school, so that means there are lesbians. And it is about, there's a cult in it, and there is murder in it, and it's cool, it's amazing. The vibes going on are amazing, and overall, I did enjoy it, so I would recommend it. I would for sure recommend it if you want to get into, or if you've already read or are already into Dark Academia aesthetic or vibes of Dark Academia or Dark Academia books. So that is what I'll recommend to you, because it is a great way to start, I think, because I started with this book and I thought it was great to start with. That was it about A Lesson in Vengeance. Now we have The American Roommate Experience by Elena Armas. Is that how you pronounce it? I'm not very sure. This is the sequel to not American Roommate Experiment. It's a sequel to The Spanish Love Deception, which is a very, very popular book around Book Talk and BookTube, since it's a romance and we all love romance, I think. And I enjoyed this more than The Spanish Love Deception. I'm gonna be very honest. The Spanish Love Deception was meh to me. I gave it 3.5 stars since it was okay to me, but it wasn't anything special. And I didn't feel like the main characters had like huge amount of chemistry too. But then I read this book, and this was amazing. Honestly, it was amazing. Since I was still in a reading slump, I gave 3.75 stars. I know the rating system is pretty complicated, but once you understand it, it's not complicated any longer. So I gave this 3.75 stars, if that makes it any easier for you. And it is about Rosie, the best friend of the main character in The Spanish Love Deception, and the cousin of the main character in The Spanish Love Deception, which is Lucas. I enjoyed it. Do I have anything more to say about this? Oh yeah, the chemistry between these two was very good. Like, the chemistry was out of this world, out of the roof, and that is what I really enjoyed about this book. This may have been my 3rd or 4th time that I read this book, and it is Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie Maniscalco. And this is this was a Jack the Ripper. Can I call it a retelling? I can't call it a retelling, but it was about Jack the Ripper, since it is set in the time when Jack the Ripper terrorized the city in England. Was it England? I'm not sure if it was set in England. I will have to look that up later. In what place did Jack the Ripper murder women? Okay, so this book is very interesting. Like, it is a YA murder mystery, and it has some romance sprinkled into it too, and I enjoy it every time I read it. But recently, like the last time I read it, it wasn't as good as I hoped it might be, since it was my 4th or 3rd time reading it, and the more you read a book, the worse it gets somehow, in some way. This book I do not have with me actually. It's from the library, so I will never buy it. I just read it from the library and I enjoyed it so much. And it was Heartstopper Volume 2. And I read Volume 1 last month. And I enjoyed that one so much. I gave it 5 stars, but this one I gave 4 stars. And why is that? It's a simple reason. I enjoyed it a little less. The romance, I think I like when a romance is fresh and nice and not when it has already been there and then it just develops a little more, but not as much development as there was before in the first book. And I think that bothered me since I do not know. But in the first book, the romance was actually developing a lot. And in the second book, it kind of put a stop to it and it just felt neutral. So that is it's not even a complaint because you can't like develop a romance even more when there's already been a romance. But I enjoyed it. It's a graphic novel with illustrations, obviously, and it was just a very enjoyable read for me. Now that we talked about Volume 2 of Heartstopper, I want to talk about Volume 3 of Heartstopper, since I also read that this month, and I enjoyed it the same way that I enjoyed Heartstopper Volume 2. But there were some triggering parts in it involving Charlie. And those were triggering to me. Doesn't mean it's triggering to everyone, but it was kind of triggering to me a little bit. And that didn't bother me because I knew it was gonna happen. It wasn't as triggering as I expected it to be, but it wasn't not triggering. Okay. This book is a Colleen Hoover book, and I love Colleen Hoover, and this was just this big disappointment because what was this story? This story was not it, okay? Like, the writing style, it's always good. The writing style is always amazing. It's so fast-paced. You get through it very easily. But this story, not it. It was supposed to be an epic romance, epic love story. It was not epic at all. It was a romance, for sure. But it was not epic at all. It was just... No. I actually can't. I do not understand the people that say this is an epic love story. Like, romance is so good. No. Like... There's cheating in this, like some major emotional cheating, and there's also some physical cheating, but that isn't like the main point. There's some major emotional cheating. And they keep on seeing each other somehow. I understand that they kind of have to, but they also don't have to. They could have said goodbye way earlier, and it just bothered me so much. Bothered me so much. And now I'm gonna give you my rating for this book, and you may be wondering, why have you rated it this high then? I gave 3 stars, and that was basically because of the writing style. The only reason why I gave 3 stars is because of the writing style, because I think it's amazing. It is truly, truly amazing. Only reason why I gave 3 stars and not 2 stars, because otherwise it would have been 2 stars. And I only give a book 1 star when I do not finish it. But I was debating on not finishing this, actually, because the story just bothered me so much. The love and stuff, no. Another book that I have to show you in pictures because I do not have the book with me right now, and it is on my e-reader since I bought it as an ebook. No, it was free actually. It was free on my Kobo, so that is very, very exciting. So I had expectations because it's by Katie Roberts, The Sea Witch by Katie Roberts. And I read the whole entire series before that, except for book 4 because I actually had to pay for that and I didn't want to pay for it since it's a very short book. That's not the point. So I had high expectations for this book because the books before this in this series were all 4-star reads to me. But I wasn't sure what to rate this, actually. I gave 3 stars at the end, and I think that is a pretty solid rating. Because some things bothered me in this. I felt like the main character, Zuli, was that her name? Was being manipulated. Like, big time. By Ursa and by Alec? I do not even remember the names. Like, I felt she was being manipulated, okay? And I did not like that. And it felt just a little surreal, like, the things that were happening. And just, I gave 3 stars, so, like, because I liked the writing style. And I did like the story, I did like the smut. But, the manipulation in this, I felt like there was some manipulation, just not for me. That is it, yeah. Not the best book in the series, definitely not the best book in the series, because I do really recommend the series, but this was definitely not Katie Roberts' best book. Yay, this was a thin book. I do not know how many pages it was, let me check. It was 342 pages, so that is not a lot at all. I actually did enjoy this book. I actually did. And I do not remember what this is about. I remember it's about like 4 boys, and they had to replace a prince who has supposedly died in a shipwreck by pirates or something. And now someone is trying to find a replacement for that prince. And he's trying to find them by collecting boys from all over the country and trying to see who looks like the prince the most, who acts like the prince the most, and just, that is it. I enjoyed this actually. I was in a reading slump when I read this. Again, I was in a reading slump pretty much this whole month, except for like 2 days ago when I finished 4 books in a day. It is interesting. I like the writing style, but it is hard. It is difficult to keep a story entertaining while it's set in one place. And I think this author did succeed, but not totally. So if it was set in more places at once, it would have been better, I think. Okay, so I also read another series in the Wicked Villain series by Katie Roberts, and this was Queen Takes Rose. And I enjoyed this more than I did the 5th book in the series, since this was the 6th book. And I enjoyed this more. I felt like there was no manipulation, but there was, what can I say about this? I do not know what I can say about this book, except for I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. I enjoyed it more than The Sea Witch. But it was still not perfect. It was still not like the plot just bothers me a little bit, the same way that The Sea Witch did, but on other points. Like, they gave consent, there was no manipulations, but there were some other things that were bothering me, and I feel like those things that were bothering me were like bothering to everyone, will not be like bothering to everyone, but it was to me. This book was quite a disappointment to me. If We Were Villains by Emma Rio, I waited for this book. So I wanted this book for a whole long time. Because I heard great things about this. I heard there was Shakespeare, and I thought I would like that, but I didn't understand Shakespeare, I found out, since it was written in Old English and not in the English of now. And I should have known, but that meant that I didn't understand half of the story. I understand what the plot line was, and I think the plot had a lot of potential for me, but since the Shakespeare references were out of place, like they were everywhere, this was just not the book for me. I read another ebook this month. I'm very sorry for all the photos or pictures or whatever you want to call it in this video. Another one, All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. Sorry for the mispronunciation of her name in the beginning of saying her name. This is a single dad trope, and I love the single dad trope, and this one succeeded. But this may sound very vain, but I like when the single dad has a little girl, and this was not a little girl. This was a grown-up boy of already 13 years or 15 years old even. And I like it when it's a little girl who is like 5 years old and is very arrogant, but this didn't have it. And it's no problem at all, because I did enjoy it, and I did give it 4 stars. Mariana Zapata, Queen of Slowburn. Okay, thank you. This may have been a little bit too slow for me, since I like when there is some romance in it, but it felt like the romance only came along like halfway in the story. And then in the last 10%, they started kissing. That was it. There was one smut scene, and that was it. So, mildly disappointed, but that doesn't mean I won't be reading more books by Marina Zapata, because I do enjoy her writing style. This book has actually been turned into a TV series. Is it a TV series or just a series? I think it's just a series. I do not know. It's a discovery of witches, and this was very interesting. I like the concept, I like the plot, but I sadly didn't like the writing or where it was going either, because I did not like the end, and I will not be reading further into the series. I gave this one 2.5 stars, and that is low for me, okay? Because my average rating is 3.6 stars, and then I gave this one 2.5 stars, so that is low. Also, this is very thick, and it's pocket-sized. First of all, I do not like pocket-sized books, but I kind of got used to it, so maybe I'll buy more pocket-sized books if I have to, if the opportunity comes along and it's cheaper that way. But I will not buy pocket-sized books any longer if I do not have to, okay? This is about Diana, and she's a witch, but she doesn't want to admit she's a witch, because she doesn't like magic, since she has a past and some things happened in it. But then she discovers a manuscript, and apparently there's something special about that manuscript. And you figure out what is special about the manuscript. But it sounds very interesting, right? It is very interesting, but I like the show better than the book itself. Quite disappointing, because usually I like the book more, but this time I like the show better. End. Hey. It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover again. And I am glad to say that I enjoyed this book more than I did maybe someday. I gave this my 4 stars. I felt like it was unnecessary, okay? This book was very much unnecessary, but it did add something to the book, so it did add something to It Ends With Us, but I felt like it didn't have a purpose. Like, it could have been left out. It could have been not been there, and it wouldn't have been missed, I wouldn't say I didn't do regret reading it, because I don't, because it was a fun read, but it was not there for a purpose, in my opinion. Oh, lordy lord. Can someone tell me what this was? What was this supposed to be? What was this supposed to turn into? Because I do not know. Like, this is just ridiculous, okay? The first, let's say, 190 pages were amazing. I enjoyed them. I was on the edge of my seat waiting for something to happen. But then page 200 came along. And what happened there? Can someone ask the author what happened there? Because plot twist after bad plot twist came along. It was just so ridiculous. And after page 200, I didn't even enjoy it. I was just laughing out loud for how ridiculous this book was. And then another plot twist came along after page 210, and then another plot twist came along after page 230, and it was just so crazy. And not the good kind of crazy. It was just ridiculous. Like, it was absolutely awful. And I gave 2.25 stars, so 2.25 stars, because it was just crazy and not in a good way at all. I will tell you a little bit about the story. So it's about a girl, and her best friend has been killed. And so it's a thriller. And now she steps into a car because she wants to get away from the college where her best friend has been killed, because she just wants to get away from the whole situation. So she steps into a car of a person who will give her a ride. But now she suspects that the person she stepped into the car with is the guy who murdered her best friend. What will happen next? Interesting, right? Well, it was interesting until those pages came along, until the plot twist happened, and it was just not interesting any longer. It was just, wow. This is actually the first real, no, maybe this was one of the first fantasies that I actually enjoyed in a while. King of Battle and Blood by Scarlett St. Clair. I haven't been enjoying fantasy in a while, and I just decided this is my faith. I'm not gonna enjoy fantasy any longer. This is sad, but it is what it is. But now that I picked up this book, I think I may like fantasy again. So this wasn't like a high fantasy. It felt like a very light fantasy, very, very neutral. But it was still very enjoyable, and there was smut in it. But I felt like the smut was too fast. I didn't feel like the characters had a real connection throughout the whole entire book, and that was so disappointing, because I expected it to be a great book, great fantasy aspect, but also a great romance aspect, because that is basically the whole book. Romance is the whole book, but it wasn't romance. It felt like plain up fucking. So that is quite disappointing. I have read a book by this author before, and it is his most popular book. And now I picked up The Maidens by Alex Michaelides, and I picked up The Silent Patient before. I have it right here. Silent Patient before, and I enjoyed it so much. Did not expect that. The plot twist, I was so shocked. I was flabbergasted. And then I decided I'm gonna pick this book up, but because for sure I will like this book too. But no, it was just too plain, too boring. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't bored at all. Not a single second of it. But it was boring. And does it make sense? No, it doesn't. But it didn't bore me. But it was boring if you look at it in a different perspective. Okay, this is another romance by Mariana Zapata. What is that? From Look of Love. I just finished this 2 hours ago. And it's a figure skating romance. And wow, I gave 3.75 stars, so 3.75 stars. It was great. I liked the names in this book. And I think names are a great thing in a book because names can mean a lot. And I like the name Jasmine, but I also like the name Yvonne. Is that how you pronounce it? Yvonne? I also like the name Yvonne and Lukov. Lukov. Can I pronounce it normally? Lukov. I like that too. So it's figure skating romance, and it's about someone who hasn't had a partner in a while, and then she gets invited to be partnering with Yvonne, and she has to think about the decision, what she will do with that, if she will partner with him since they're enemies. And it is also best friend's brother trope. Best friend brother trope. But we don't get to see a lot of the best friends, so it isn't really like obvious, but it is there. And I did enjoy this. I did really enjoy this, but it was boring at some points, and it was kind of plain. Not a lot happened. There were some cute scenes, and there was one smut scene and 2 kissing scenes, I believe, and I did enjoy it. But would I recommend it? Yes, I definitely would. But I think it was just too long for a romance because romances are normally between 300 and 400 pages. But this one was 531 pages, so that is a lot, but I still enjoyed it, so I'm not complaining. Those are all the books. I hope you enjoyed me struggling to talk about these books, because I did. I really did struggle at the beginning the most, but I kind of flowed my way through it eventually. But I always struggle talking about books. It's just a thing of mine. I struggle talking about books, but it's no matter. Do not worry about it. That was all of the books. The books that I would recommend the most are probably Stalking Jack the Ripper, since I read it so many times and I still recommend it because it's just so good. And the story itself is amazing, and I didn't expect a plot twist, and it was just a great book. So now I have to say goodbye, and I hope you're going to watch more of me. I hope you're going to enjoy watching more of me. And that is it. Those were all the books. That was the video. I'll say goodbye, and I hope to see you later. So, bye-bye.